Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. More Rostermania drama going down with London seemingly rejecting X. As we saw yesterday, they may have another target on their list right now, with Los Angeles Guerrillas releasing Asim from his contract despite extending him just a few weeks ago. Does that mean he's actually been bought out by another team? Vegas, Florida, London, where's Asim going to go? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to discuss today. First of all, just to mention this, because the Call of Duty next thing, which these guys are at CDL Warzone stuff. Not sure Krim is in this image, unfortunately. We can see Zinni attaches here. You know, Z-Laner, Bio got Biffa, like, you know, many names, of course, in this image. Thought it was pretty entertaining stuff. Now, firstly, just wanted to mention this, because, of course, maps are a big topic going into this upcoming title. And, you know, Deserter here are kind of comparing Slums and Yemen from Black Ops 2. For me, I honestly think I preferred Yemen, but Slums was probably the better map just because you could do more on it. It was a hardpoint map. It was also a capture the flag map. You guys remember they remastered Slums for Black Ops 4, certainly. Don't think they brought it back for Cold War in the end, or maybe they did and it wasn't viable. But, I mean, yeah, Slums, a pretty good map. I was never actually a massive fan of it, despite it had a great reputation. But it was a good hardpoint map, good capture the flag map, back in the good old days. Yemen was just hardpoint, but, I mean, look, both of these maps had their legendary moments. You know, Scump, who's the best in the game. Scump getting cross-map kills with the Scorpion. I'm sure some of you guys will know that one. But yeah, definitely hopeful this game has decent maps. We saw earlier today, Octane said that at least one of them they played was good. We saw that museum overview that looked pretty good as well. We believe there's going to be this kind of Marina Bay Grand Prix map, which people have kind of looked into and thought, okay, that could be okay. So, look, I'm not exactly expecting anything spectacular this year from Infinity Ward, but hopefully the base maps are at least decent. Just to mention this also as well, because there was a bit of, you know, beef really going down between SlasheR and Doug said to Martin, we'll see here in a second. But I managed to find this clip up from the Codcast with SlasheR back in 2020, where he effectively stated he was asked the question if he had an ideal team to form with himself and 4 others as it was at the time. Like, he would have been the main ER, 2 flexes, 2 SMGs, because that was at the time going into, like, well, we didn't really know at that point what next year's title was going to be. Would it be 5v5? Would it be 4v4? Of course, going eventually into Cold War, they made it 4v4 back instead of 5v5. So his 4 players that he would team with instead of, well, plus himself, would be Simp and aBeZy. He was his first 2, no question. Then he said, give me Cellium as well. And then he said Gunless actually was the 4th player. But, of course, the first 3 he mentioned were Simp, aBeZy, and Cellium. And then, you know, a couple of years later, it turns out that's exactly the team that he managed to get. But he also gave Gunless his credit, right, which I thought was kind of, you know, interesting as well, that would have been his team. Like, at least a couple of years ago, Simp, aBeZy, Cell, Gunless, and SlasheR, they said, look, these guys never get off the game. We'd be an absolute dominant force. Turns out Gunless now not even in the league, right, and doesn't seem like he's going to get a spot. Maybe it could still happen, though, as we shall see here in a second. But, I mean, yeah, in reply to this original tweet, Doug says, I'm going to get into the league and gun you to bed, Austin. Me when you screw up. And then Doug tries to come back in the replies, but, I mean, yeah, it doesn't really go so well. So, I mean, yeah, like, I don't know. These guys, we'll see. If Doug's always talking about getting back into the league, I don't know if and when it will actually ever happen, but, you know, I'm wishing him the best. We'll see if it happens. Of course, it's on the Boston Academy, but things will have to go rather wrong with that SMG duo, I think, for Doug to get in. But maybe the COD gods are working on something where one player gets unwell and then they need like a last-minute sub, and then Doug's there at the event, and, you know, it could go rather well. Let's dive into some of the Rostermania stuff then, of course, because last year at Major 1, it was, well, the OpTic Texas boys that won their home event. And if you actually click on these, you get some interesting moments. Like, this is a new high-res image here of the aBeZy, like, ear graphic. So that's a fantastic one to add to the arsenal. And there's some other, of course, well, images from this event as well. Good times for sure. But of course, the OpTic boys, after a bit of drama in the off-season, decided at the end of the day to run it back for next season regardless. One team that was going to seemingly run it back with plenty of their players was the Los Angeles Guerrillas. Today, though, they part ways with Asim, and this kind of caught me off guard to some degree, just because Asim not long ago was extended on his contract going into next season. And obviously, Asim last year got an offer at the end of the season to Florida, because of course they dropped Asim from the LAG, put him to the bench, then Florida wanted him, and he said, look, no, I'm not going to take that offer because maybe for financial reasons or whatever the explanation was, he thought it would be better to stay on LAG. And even going into this season, I still thought that for Asim to stay on the bench there, like, arguably they should have brought him back anyway, because of course Huke and Neptune is their SMG duo. I'm not sure personally that Huke and Neptune is going to last the test of time. I think there's very much a world in which that SMG duo gets changed up this season, just because their AR duo is set, right? They've signed both Spart and Arcitys to 3-year deals. Like, that is going to be their AR duo for a long time, unless things go badly wrong with this team. Therefore, if there are changes to be made, it's going to be to the SMG line. And I think Asim could probably, you know, I'd imagine he's sitting there on the bench thinking, you know what, that team probably might make a change, and maybe I'm on the bench and can get a spot back into the team at some point or another if the guys want to play with me again. Who knows? So I thought Asim staying on the bench of LAG made a fair bit of sense for him. Of course, I'm sure he'd probably prefer to play on a starting spot, but if there's one sub spot to have in the league, the LAG one isn't a bad one as an SMG player at least. So regardless though, they decide to release him yesterday. So this is either they changed their minds and decided, you know what, yeah, we did extend you, but now we want to release you. So this is what they did, like, well, option extended, right, a few weeks ago, where Spart, SlasheR, Asim, Huke, and Neptune all got their options extended. So Asim was effectively a restricted free agent. They said, look, you know, we're going to keep you on the bench, but you are a free agent, you can explore offers, and if you don't get an offer or whatever, then well, I guess we'll keep you on the bench. Now, interestingly enough, he's now released from the team, which either means they decided to change their minds, and the thing is they extended his contract, so they can't really change their minds. They'd be obligated to pay him out for the entire season, unless they discussed and came to some sort of like arrangement with Asim himself, or the other possibility, of course, is that he was actually bought out, right? Like, as Certo say, they officially release him, and Ben's like, was he released, or was he, you know, was it something else? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. They extended him, they seem kind of happy to keep him on the bench if they need to, or as a restricted free agent if they get an offer for him, and then now they're releasing him. It's like, probably they got an offer for him, right? And probably they came to an arrangement where Asim was bought out of the team, and now Asim is going to go and join a starting squad elsewhere, which I think is sensible, right? Asim, very valuable player to, I think, many teams that he's been on over the last couple of years. But if you do have Asim on your roster, you need, I think, a slaying SMG alongside him. You can certainly have Asim if you've got a Slayer alongside him, kind of like what New York Subliners was with Hydra and Asim. Like, that worked pretty well in Cold War for a time at least. I think that's the way to do it. So if this is the case, where is Asim going to go? There are some options because some teams have not yet been confirmed. Mutineers is potentially one of them, but we believe that Mutineers SMG liner is going to be Havoc and Vikal. Those were both kind of unrestricted free agents, I guess, that they could acquire. Now, Asim is either unrestricted and is now kind of free on the market, where Vegas might want to get him, or someone paid a buyout for him. Mutineers seem to know what their roster is. I don't think it's Mutineers. Many seem to believe it's going to be the London Royal Ravens. Temp was on stream last night talking about this. I went onto this clip to try and watch it, and the music is blaring so loud that I could barely even hear what Temp's saying, and in order to, like, you know, remove the audio from the background, it would just be, like, inaudible for you guys. So I'll just basically say what Temp said, because he didn't say much. He just said, look, if LAG release him, Temp thinks he's going to London, is effectively the situation here, which does kind of make sense. Now, the thing is for London, is this actually a good idea, given the other players they have on their situation? So Temp believes that Asim's going to London. To me, that makes the most sense. I think Chrome was actually saying that he heard about this rumor a couple of weeks ago now, that this was a possibility. Actually, well, Chrome tweets this out, and Chrome says in the replies, this was in the works before Paul X's tweet. So we saw yesterday that Paul X was effectively, like, either rejected by London or whatever the case was, and now Afro 0 Nasty +1 is the situation. So Paul X might well be chalked. Now, to me, Paul X to London, like, I guess it could have made sense in place of Gizmo as it is, but I guess really they needed an SMG, really, to round out that roster. Nasty can run one of the SMGs, but you're going to need surely another SMG on the roster as well. And now I guess Asim is going to be that guy. So, like, let's just kind of break down what London are trying to do here. So I like Asim. I think he could be a good player, as with Nasty. I think they're both kind of, you know, can be relatively inconsistent. They're not going to do an incredible amount of slaying, but, like, you know, I think they're both good, valuable SMGs to teams. I think Nasty, honestly, was one of the more underrated players in the entire league at the start of the season. When London were good, a lot of the credit went to Zero, and a lot of the credit went to even Gizmo, but certainly Afro. But Nasty was making a lot of plays that got him very little credit. So I think he deserves more respect, and I think he should certainly stay in the league for at least another year or two, just to see, like, what player Nasty can develop into, because he's one of the biggest prospects in the European scene for quite some time. So are London thinking here that Nasty can effectively be the slaying SMG? Because if their roster is indeed Zero as, I guess, the main, Asim and Nasty would be your SMG duo, and then you need +1, whether that's Gizmo, whether that's Pork, whether that's someone else. Like, yeah, I don't know if I love it, to be honest, because as I've just said, if you have Asim, which I think is a perfectly viable SMG option, like, you need someone who can really slay. If Nasty is going to be the guy that can ultra slay on this team, fair enough. Or maybe Nasty can run the flex, which I think is also a viable option here, but you really need a slaying sub, and I really just don't understand why London don't seem to be going for Wardy, because Wardy is kind of in a similar category to Afro and even Hydra and these other guys that have been effectively the top prospect SMG player from the European Challenger scene for the last couple of years. Wardy was that guy this past season. He dropped like a 1.3 at the Challengers World Championship with an SMG, and if that, like, no one else seems to be wanting to get him right now, and London could just sign Wardy, score effectively an open goal, and you know, if he doesn't work out, then whatever, right? But they could sign him for, you know, a very low amount of money, I imagine. So I don't really understand what London exactly are doing. Like, I think the Asim thing is good, don't get me wrong, I like that option, but I just think the team they build around around Asim has to be well designed, because Asim is never going to do the most amount of slaying. But I think Asim and Zero, like, did Asim and Zero actually play together back in, like, on the FaZe clan team back in Black Ops 4, I think, right, at the end of that year? I'm pretty sure that was the case. So I guess there is some history and some chemistry there. But just to look at the numbers here, right, this is the LAN only numbers for Nasty this past season. Gets a 68, okay, a 1 in hardpoint. Like, it's not looking particularly good. His search wasn't great, in fairness, but his hardpoint was okay. Like, I think Nasty's a better player than he got credit for, in fairness, but like, I just don't think a Nasty and Asim SMG combo is going to really strike fear into the hearts of the league, right? You're going to need a player, you need an Afro, really, on this team. And I think Nasty he doesn't necessarily have to just be an SMG. I think he can be a flex as well. So I kind of like that option to keep things versatile. And the Asim pickup, I think, is good. Brings this team probably that extra element of leadership and winning kind of ability and experience they might need, because I think London in general have kind of suffered with that, especially this past season, when they'd be a great team online, they get to an event, and then either the pressure gets to them, or it just doesn't seem to me that London quite had that winning edge. Like, even if they were to have got to a grand final, I just think there's no way that London would have ever won a grand final last season. Like, Zero, of course, has won in the past, but I'm not sure he's the ideal IGL to kind of inspire that within the rest of the guys on the team. And Asim might be another, helpful element to bring that to the roster. But if you are bringing him in, you need some slaying, right? So, like, they'll have to figure that one out within the London camp themselves. The other potential option, of course, would be Vegas, right? But I just don't really see Vegas being the team that actually bought Asim out. It could be possible. Like, this is one potential roster. We believe that, Temp, of course, TJ is going to be the team of two. Now, like, I don't, like, also, it's a similar situation, right? If TJ and Asim is your SMG duo, it's like, I mean, come on. Are you really scared if you're one of the top teams in the league? Like, I don't think you are. The SMG duo is so important. Like, you can have one of TJ or Asim as your SMG duo. Your partner to them needs to be someone who can actually slay hard if you want to succeed. And then Viper Gaming 13 here has thrown a Gunless into the mix as well. So, this is interesting not having Clayster here, right? But I'm pretty sure that Clay and Asim, if this was going to be a thing on Vegas, probably wouldn't get on particularly well after the New York days. So, look, intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you like this move for London if they do get Asim? And what roster do they actually build around Asim to make this work? Because London last year were a top 3 team in the game at the start of the year online. They had a lot of slaying power. They couldn't convert it to results. Asim's teams the last couple of seasons have generally at some point been in finals or there or thereabouts. Last season he won an event on Los Angeles Guerrillas. So I think he's a good option. Like, I think it's good for London to buy him out of the team. But you've got to be sensible there in your team selection. Just to mention this before we close out the video, then best champs winner of all time is still going on. Last night is pretty much a foregone conclusion here. OpTic versus Freako Impact. They're going to be in the finals, of course, and they will probably go the entire way. But I mean, yeah, they're winning this vote pretty resoundingly, which I do think is probably fair enough and justifiable. But yeah, OpTic will be in the finals. And just to mention this, if you guys haven't watched this video already on the Modern Warfare 2 thing that OpTic did last night, this is just an absolutely fantastic watch. They did a LAN event. This is what's so cool about them having their kind of own venue here in the Esports Stadium Arlington, when they can match OpTic Nation up against OpTic Gaming and run like a Modern Warfare 2 tourney effectively. So map 1 came out last night, a terminal capture the flag. I think they're going to do like a high-rise search and destroy next. So that was just great fun. Definitely check it out if you guys haven't already. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.